simplifying the nearly 75,000 pages of the federal tax code. Could it finally happen? Republican lawmakers said to be hoping to finally do it with soon-to-be President Donald Trump. But will the swamp of Washington lobbyists mess it all up? Hi, everybody. I'm David Asman. Welcome to Forbes on Fox. Let's go in focus to find out with Elizabeth McDonald, Steve Forbes, Sabrina Schaefer, Rich Karlgaard, John Tamny, and joining us this week, former economic advisor to President Obama, Austin Goolsbee. So, Steve, these lobbyists have spent decades getting their special deals. They're not going to give up easily.
No, they're not. And that's why Trump has to move hard and fast, not with a tiddly bill that just does a little trimming here and there. He's got to go big. Back in 1986, when we last simplified the tax code, they took out a lot of tax shelters, realizing if you touch one, you got to take them all out. So they got to think big and recognize that when you lower the burden, make working more profitable, make investing more, risk-taking more profitable, and remove the barriers, the economy improves. And Trump knows that the economy doesn't improve, nothing else isn't going to much matter. So go for the big tax cut and appeal to the American people the way Ronald Reagan appealed to the American people. That's the only way you can get it done, go over their heads.
Well, Austin, as if we needed a reminder, just talking about the costs to the economy of the complications of our tax system, 74,000 pages. It takes 6.1 billion hours, man hours a year to fill out all the forms involved at a total cost of $234 billion. A huge cost to this tax system. Can it be simplified?
It can be, and as you know, I've been a longtime proponent of big simplification for working people. I think the problem here is going to be twofold. The first is, when Ronald Reagan did it in 1986, A, they paid for it, and B, they actually sat down and tried to get the loopholes and things out of the tax code. So far, Donald Trump is proposing more loopholes, and second, they're not going to be able to pay for it. They're going to just end up making it a giant tax cut that's going to blow up the deficit even more. So I think I'm not optimistic on where this is headed.
I gathered that. But, Rich, you know, for all the talk about simplification, and frankly, it seems to go in one ear and out the other in Washington, look at how it's gone up. We go from 400 pages in 1913 all the way up, even through the Reagan years, by the way, the tax code actually increased to almost 75,000 pages.
Yeah, Steve is right. Trump has to go big, he has to go fast and early, and I think he has to speak to the American people directly, particularly these two groups, small business owners and people, the middle and upper middle class, because they pay more than their fair share. Poor people don't pay much at all. Large corporations like Apple are able to get their corporate rates down below 10%. Hedge fund managers pay carried interest rates of corporate interest taxes. So he's got to appeal to the people who are right now shouldering the big burden more than anybody else. Yeah,
and Johnny, as I mentioned before, you're down in Washington right now. We got the Capitol right over your shoulder there. All those lobbyists have been spending decades in that Capitol building trying to cut their special deals, and they're going to do everything they possibly can to stop this from happening.
Yeah, tax simplification would be great, but it's quite simply not going to happen. Politicians derive their power from the tax code's utter complexity. So to simplify, to give us a flat or a consumption tax would amount to politicians giving up not only all their power in office, but all their earnings power once they leave office. I'd love to see it happen. It won't.
Well, the good thing, Emac, is that this is one thing that Paul Ryan and Donald Trump seem to agree on, and Paul Ryan has been putting together the plans for major simplification, lowering of rates for a long time. Here's how he'd do it. The top tax rates would go down, really be slashed, the corporate tax rates from 35% down to 15% if Trump gets his way. Individual tax rates would be cut, and of course, estate tax would go down to zero.
Yeah, and the plan's in there, too. There's a better way blueprint that's already in there in the Congress. I'm with Steve and Rich. Do it big, do it bold, do it fast. That's what John F. Kennedy did. You want to drain the swamp, drain Gucci Gulch of all the lobbyists, because, you know, the tax code is the 21st century pork barrel. And what Kennedy said is so important. Watch what John F. Kennedy said. He said it is demoralizing to the American people. You have to speak right to them. He's saying put money, keep your money in your pocket so you can grow grow your businesses, grow jobs, and grow the economy. Watch what happened. By the mid-60s, the unemployment rate was about cut in half, and the economy was booming, and revenues came pouring in.
By the way, Sabrina, Margaret Thatcher said something similar. She said the main reason she was for tax simplification was the tax code was just making the rule of law fall apart in England before she got a tax simplification thing through, because people, you'd go by one tax rule and that would contradict another tax rule. It really affected the whole rule of law.
Yeah, David, it makes criminals out of otherwise good citizens. I think that Donald Trump and the Republican Congress need to sell this through the lens of fairness, an equal opportunity for all. When government is taking all of our money, if you are a small business, as Rich points out, you may not have the same opportunity as others around you. But I think, to John's point, this is going to be a very steep uphill climb. I just received an email this past week from a lobbying association sort of criticizing Paul Ryan for saying draining the swamp. From their perspective, they said these earmarks allow us to have federalism at its best, to sort of, pump up local governments. And I'm thinking that is a very interesting frame.
It is
so
indeed.
We have to counter that one.
So, Steve, they've already started. And, of course, there's an irony here, Steve, that we can't overlook, which is that the president-elect, the guy who says he's going to drain the swamp, has taken advantage of every single tax loophole that he possibly could, has bragged about it, in fact, saying it proves he's smart. Is he the right guy to do it?
Sure, he can say this code is corrupt. He can say he's experienced it firsthand, and this is one of some of the things we've got to do to cure the thing. And he's got to sharpen that message with the American people. He's going to have to do more than one address with the American people and make the point that when you put a burden on risk-taking, productive work and success, you're going to get less of them. And every time we reduce that burden, the economy's prospered. If Washington has a problem with it, Washington should remember it's working for us, not the other way around.
Austin, I'm sure you love that irony, the fact that you have the major guy taking advantage of these deals saying he's going to simplify the thing.
Look, arsonists don't make great fire chiefs, and Donald Trump is not going to be Ronald Reagan. This isn't 1986. What he's doing is George W. Bush 2001. And it failed then, it's going to fail now.
On the other hand, Rich, remember who became the first head of the SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission? It was Joseph P. Kennedy, who was known as taking advantage of all kinds of things in the stock market. He came down and really regulated that market.
Yeah, I think an arsonist or a crook is a pretty good one to hire. If I want to solve my computer security problems, I'll hire a hacker, provided, they've gone to the right side and all that kind of stuff. Look, I think Trump also has to bring into his tax-cutting coalition these 9 red state senators who are up for re-election in 2018 and either flip some of them to Republicans or get them to a broader pro-growth coalition.
John, is it conceivable that Trump could get a coalition of a few Democrats with a Republican majority?
Well, I think the market reaction to his election says it's conceivable. I don't think anyone expected he would have control of the House and Senate. So it's possible to get a very good tax cut here. Whether it's simplification, I think we're dreaming there. I'm hearing about lobbyists, but lobbyists are an effect of a tax code and a government that's grown too large. That's what I don't see happening, but I do see a good tax cut.
But, Emac, just the fact that we're going to have 3 individual tax rates as opposed to the many that we have now, that's simplification.
Yeah, it is simplification. Listen, this is exactly what the U.S. economy needs. I hear what John is saying, that the tax code has been basically simplified beyond all understanding. But there is a way forward. Listen, the last 8 years have been so demoralizing. Why not bring some optimism into the U.S. economy and help everybody's wallets in the process?
Optimism.